Write in the comments where you are watching from and at what time, so I can get to know you better. To support the channel for free, don't forget to subscribe and like. There are voids on the map where truth goes to die. Tonight, from the deepest vaults of the Obsidian Archive, we open a file that officially doesn't exist. Case 734, concerning a facility that has been systematically erased from every known record. Write in the comments where you are watching from and at what time, so I can get to know you better. To support the channel for free, don't forget to subscribe and like. Some places aren't just forgotten by time, they are deliberately erased. Welcome to the Obsidian Archive. In our digital age, the world is mapped, cataloged, and indexed down to the square inch. We have satellite imagery that can read a license plate from orbit, geological surveys that chart the very bones of the Earth, and historical maps that trace the rise and fall of civilizations. Yet, deep within the desolate expanse of the North American continent, there exists a place that defies this omniscience. It is a scar on the map, a void where data should be. We're talking about a swath of land, roughly the size of a small city, that simply isn't there. On Google Earth, it's a pixelated smudge, an area of suspiciously low resolution that persists year after year. On official government topographical surveys from the USGS, the contour lines become erratic, flattening into an unnatural plateau before simply stopping. On aviation charts, it's designated as a restricted airspace, but the designation code corresponds to no known military base or testing range. It is a cartographic phantom. This isn't an oversight. It's not a glitch in the data stream. The evidence points to a meticulous, coordinated, and ongoing effort to render this location invisible. We first stumbled upon this anomaly while cross-referencing declassified Cold War-era spy satellite archives with modern commercial imagery. A cartographer who has requested absolute anonymity contacted us. Let's call him Ptolemy. He spent 30 years working for a federal mapping agency. He described finding what he called a data sink, a geographic coordinate block, where all incoming telemetry, from ground-penetrating radar to atmospheric density readings, would simply vanish. The data didn't bounce back. It didn't return an error. It was consumed. When he tried to flag the area for investigation, his query was silently deleted from the system overnight. His supervisor advised him to forget the ghost in the machine. But this is no ghost. The systematic erasure of a physical location from every public and many private records requires immense resources. It suggests that whatever is hidden, there is of such paramount importance or profound danger that its very existence must be denied. This is not just a restricted area. It's a surgically excised piece of reality, a place the world is not supposed to know exists. And the first question we must ask is not what is there, but why has such extraordinary effort been expended to convince us that nothing is there at all? A place without a map is a mystery. A place without a paper trail is a conspiracy. In Chapter 1, we established the geographical black hole, a deliberate anomaly in our planet's cartography. Now we descend from the satellite's view into the labyrinth of bureaucracy, searching for the official lifeblood of any location. Its records. Every piece of land in the developed world has a history written in ink and legislation. It has a deed, a title, a parcel number. It is taxed, zoned, and accounted for. It appears in census tracts, utility grids, and environmental impact reports. Our target location has none of these. It is a ghost in the public record, a complete and total administrative void. Our investigation began with a simple land ownership query. We submitted requests to the Bureau of Land Management, the county registrar, and the state archives. The responses were not just negative, they were perplexingly uniform. The land, we were told, did not fall under their jurisdiction. It was, in their official terminology, unassigned and unrecorded. Think about that. Not federally owned, not state-owned, not private property, a legal impossibility. It's a bureaucratic sleight of hand, using the system's own language to create a place that is legally nowhere. We then filed a series of Freedom of Information Act, or FOIA requests, targeting dozens of federal agencies: the Department of Defense, the Department of Energy, the CIA, the NSA, even the National Park Service. We asked for any and all documentation pertaining to the specific geographic coordinates of the anomaly. The result was a cascade of rejections. Most were boilerplate denials, citing national security exemptions. But a few were different. The Department of Energy, for instance, sent back a response stating they could neither confirm nor deny the existence of records responsive to our request. This is known as a Glomar Response, a legal maneuver typically reserved for the most sensitive intelligence operations. It's an answer that tells you more by what it refuses to say. It confirms that you're asking the right questions. The most chilling response, however, came from a lesser-known sub-agency of the Department of the Interior. It was a single page, and almost every word was blacked out with a heavy marker. But in the margins, a faint imprint, likely from a page behind it in the photocopier, was visible under infrared light. It contained a string of alphanumeric characters and a single terrifying phrase: sub-level containment failure. This is the nature of the cover-up. It is not a simple wall of silence, but a complex, layered defense designed to exhaust and misdirect. They haven't just locked a door. They have erased the door, the hallway, and the building from the blueprints. Whatever the facility is, its secrecy is protected by a fortress of legal and administrative paradoxes, making it a true black site, not just in a physical sense, but in a legal one as well. For months, our investigation was stalled, trapped between a blank spot on a map and a wall of bureaucratic silence. We had a location with no name and a cover-up with no context. Then we received an encrypted email from a source claiming to be a former archivist for a defense contractor. The email contained a single attachment, a scanned image of a fragment of a document, its edges charred as if it had been rescued from an incinerator. The document was our first tangible clue, the first crack in the foundation of secrecy. It was a routing slip, dated 1987, with a classification marking of Top Secret Umbra. The Umbra designator is a code word that denotes a level of secrecy above Top Secret, reserved for programs of extreme sensitivity. But the most important detail was the subject line. It read, Project Nightshade, Phase 2, Relocation and Acclimation Report. And beneath that, a set of geographic coordinates that matched the exact center of our cartographic anomaly. This was it. The ghost finally had a name, Project Nightshade. The name itself is evocative, sinister. Nightshade is a family of poisonous plants, some of which are known for their psychoactive, hallucinogenic properties. Was this a clue? Was the facility involved in biological or chemical weapons research? MK Ultra-style psychological experimentation? The document fragment offered few answers but countless new questions. The body of the text was mostly burned away, but we could make out a few phrases. subjects exhibiting extreme photophobia and aggression, and failure of primary containment protocols. And finally, sterilization directive pending O5 approval. The term O5 approval is not standard military or government jargon, which adds another layer of mystery. It sounds more like something from a fictional universe, yet here it was on a document that bore all the hallmarks of a genuine classified file. From the specific font used by government typewriters of that era to the faint watermark of the Department of Defense Eagle. We sent the scan to forensic document examiners. They confirmed the paper stock and ink were consistent with the late 1980s. They also confirmed the burn patterns were not accidental. The document was deliberately destroyed. Project Nightshade was the thread we could finally pull. It transformed our investigation from a geographical search to a historical one. We were no longer looking for a place, but for a program. A program so secret, it was given a name out of a dark fairy tale, conducted in a facility that has been scrubbed from the face of the earth, and whose records were meant to be turned to ash. The fragment was a message from the past, a warning that what lies in that administrative void is not just an empty space, but a buried, and perhaps still active, nightmare. Maps and documents can tell you one story, but the land and the people who live on it tell another. To find the truth of Project Nightshade and its hidden facility, we had to leave the archives behind and travel to the edge of the void. The area surrounding the anomaly is sparsely populated, a collection of forgotten towns and isolated ranches that time seems to have passed by. These are communities built on self-reliance and silence, where outsiders are met with suspicion. We spent weeks here, drinking coffee in dusty diners and talking to old-timers on their front porches, listening. At first, no one would speak of the blank space on the map. They called it the Dead Land or the Government Patch. It was a place you didn't go, a subject you didn't broach. But slowly, with patience, the stories began to emerge. An elderly woman whose family had ranched this land for 5 generations told us about her grandfather's journal. He wrote of the late 1950s when the military arrived overnight. They seized a vast tract of land, paying pennies on the dollar and forcing families out with threats under the guise of eminent domain for federal testing. But no tests were ever publicly announced. Instead, a massive construction project began, conducted entirely at night under intense floodlights that turned the midnight desert into an artificial day. A retired trucker spoke of hauling strange, oversized cargo down unmarked access roads in the 1980s. His manifest was always blank, his cargo containers lead-lined and cryogenically cooled. He was never allowed to see what was inside, and his route ended at a heavily armed gate that didn't exist on any road map, a gate that led directly into the Deadland. The most disturbing accounts, however, were the local legends. Stories of hollow-eyed men seen wandering at the perimeter fence, dressed in strange, ill-fitting clothes, seemingly oblivious to the harsh climate. Tales of low-frequency hums that emanated from the ground, causing sleepless nights and agitated livestock. And the disappearances. At least a dozen people from these border towns have vanished over the past half-century. The official explanation is always the same. They got lost in the unforgiving wilderness. But the locals know better. They say these people were drawn to the Deadland, that they got too curious and crossed a line they shouldn't have. These are whispers, not evidence. They are folklore, not fact. But taken together, they paint a chillingly consistent picture. The construction, the secret cargo, the strange sightings, the disappearances, it all points to a long-term, clandestine operation with a human cost. The people here live with a quiet terror, a knowledge that the monster in their backyard is not a myth. It's real. It's protected by their own government, and it resides within the facility that does not appear on any record. Write in the comments where you are watching from and at what time, so I can get to know you better. To support the channel for free, don't forget to subscribe and like. Some maps are meant to stay blank. In the vast, sun-scorched emptiness of the Great Basin Desert, the line between what is known and what is hidden is as thin as a shadow at noon. It was in this unforgiving landscape that geologist Evan Hayes, a rising star at the U.S. Geological Survey, on loan to a private mineral exploration firm, vanished without a trace on October 17, 2011. The official report is tragically simple. A man unprepared for the harsh realities of the desert, lost to the elements. But the official report, like the maps of this region, fails to tell the whole story. Evan wasn't just any geologist. He was a specialist in gravimetry and seismic tomography, mapping the unseen world beneath our feet. His assignment was to survey a quadrant of land designated only by a string of numbers, a patch of earth unremarkable on the surface, owned by the federal government, and leased for exploratory purposes. His field notes, copies of which were later leaked by a concerned colleague, tell a different story than the one of a lost hiker. In the weeks leading up to his disappearance, his precise, scientific entries began to fray at the edges, colored with a sense of awe and confusion. He documented extreme magnetic fluctuations that rendered his compass useless and gravitational anomalies his equipment struggled to quantify. He wrote of subharmonic tremors originating from a fixed point deep underground, tremors that didn't match any known geological or tectonic profile. They were rhythmic, almost artificial. His final email, sent to his sister from a satellite phone just 48 hours before he went missing, is the document that transforms this case from a tragedy into a conspiracy. It read, in part, "Sarah, I've found something out here. Something that shouldn't be here. It's not a deposit, not a formation. It's a void. The instruments are screaming, but the ground is silent. It feels deliberate, like a scar carved into the bedrock, hidden on purpose. There's a structure down there, something that doesn't appear on any record." When the search and rescue team was finally dispatched, they found his survey truck parked neatly at his base camp. His tent was zipped, his gear stored. Inside, his laptop was on, displaying a complex seismic rendering of the area. In the center of the map, where the anomalies were most intense, was a massive, perfectly spherical data void. The data wasn't corrupted. It was simply absent, as if a colossal object deep underground were absorbing the seismic waves entirely. His personal GPS, his rock samples, and his handwritten field journal were all missing. The official search lasted only 72 hours before being called off, an unusually short duration for a missing federal contractor. The area was subsequently declared off-limits, citing unstable geological conditions, the very conditions Evan Hayes was sent to investigate. His family was told he likely fell into an uncharted cave system. But Evan Hayes wasn't a novice, he was an expert. And experts know you don't fall into a void that was deliberately erased from the map. For 30 years, Marcus Leo Thorne was a watchman in the sky. From his darkened room at the Reno Tahoe Tracon facility, he guided thousands of aircraft through the complex airspace of the American West. His voice was a calm authority in the chaos of the clouds. But there was one section of the sky he was trained not to see, a ghost in the machine he was ordered to ignore. Now in retirement and speaking to us under condition of anonymity, he's breaking his silence about the airspace that doesn't officially exist. He calls it the zone. It was a massive block of sky, roughly 50 by 50 miles, in the same desolate region where Evan Hayes would later disappear. It was not a restricted military area like Area 51, not a designated MOA. On all official FAA charts, it was open sky. But every controller knew, you do not vector traffic through the zone. Leo describes how any aircraft, private or commercial, that drifted near its invisible boundary would be met with a chillingly calm, digital-sounding voice on the emergency guard frequency. The voice would simply state, "Vector, immediately heading 090. You are approaching sensitive airspace." There was no call sign, no identification. It wasn't Air Force. It wasn't civilian. When controllers tried to query the source, they were met with static. The instruction was absolute, and pilots who questioned it were later met by FAA officials upon landing. Leo says the real anomalies were the radar tracks inside the zone. He describes them as fast walkers, targets that would appear from nowhere, moving at speeds, and executing maneuvers that defied the laws of physics. They would accelerate from a dead stop to Mach 5 in seconds, perform right-angle turns, or ascend vertically out of radar range. They had no transponder codes, no flight plans. They were ghosts, visible only as fleeting green blips on a screen. The breaking point for Leo came in the spring of 2009. A commercial flight, SkyWest 5802, experienced an instrument malfunction and began to drift towards the zone's eastern edge. Before Leo could issue a correction, the unidentified voice came on the channel, its tone sharper, more urgent. Simultaneously, a fast walker blip appeared on his screen, moving from the center of the zone to intercept the airliner's flight path at an impossible velocity. For 30 terrifying seconds, a collision seemed imminent. Then, just as suddenly, the airliner's systems came back online, and it corrected its course. The fast walker vanished from the radar. The official report logged the event as a minor navigational error caused by solar flare activity. But Leo knew what he saw. He filed a detailed report and was placed on administrative leave the next day. A month later, he was offered a generous early retirement package attached to an ironclad non-disclosure agreement. "They're not just hiding a base," Leo told us, his voice trembling. "They are hiding something that controls the sky above it. That facility on the ground, it's just the tip of a spear that reaches far beyond our atmosphere. We were contacted 2 months ago by a man who calls himself Silas. He claims to be a former contractor, a specialized welder who worked on the construction of the facility itself. He refused video contact, providing only this audio recording, which we have authenticated as unique and unedited. What you are about to hear is his story, in his own words. They hire you through shell corporations, 3 or 4 layers deep. You're not working for the government, not for the military. You're working for a company that doesn't exist. They took us out there in blacked out buses. No windows. For 6 months, I didn't see the sun. My job was Structural reinforcement. That's what they called it. I'm a hyperbaric welder. I fuse exotic metals in extreme environments. Down there, it was always extreme. We were deep. I don't know how deep. Miles, maybe. The pressure was immense. The air had a strange metallic taste, and there was a hum. A constant, low-frequency hum that you felt in your bones more than you heard with your ears. It wasn't machinery. It was the place itself. I never saw a blueprint. You were given your task for the day on a tablet that wiped itself every 12 hours. You only saw your section, but you could feel the scale of it. The corridors. They weren't right. The angles were strange, unsettling. Sometimes a hallway would seem to stretch on longer than it should, or a room would feel bigger on the inside than the entrance suggested. It was designed to disorient you. The material we were welding wasn't steel, wasn't titanium. It was dense, dark, and cool to the touch, even after you hit it with a plasma torch. It absorbed energy. It absorbed light. We were patching and reinforcing the walls of caverns, massive, spherical caverns that had been carved out of the bedrock by something other than drills or explosives. The walls were smooth, almost polished, and covered in geometric patterns that made your eyes hurt if you stared too long. They told us we were building an underground research archive, a secure data storage facility. But you don't store data behind 20 feet of an unknown alloy. You don't build it in a place that feels like it's actively trying to push you out. There was an incident, an acoustic event, they called it. The hum. It got louder. It changed pitch. It felt like the entire mountain was screaming. The metal we were working on started to resonate, glowing with a faint, purple light, even with no power to it. We were evacuated, scrambled to the surface. That was the only time I saw the sky. They kept us in quarantine for a month, running psych evaluations, medical tests. Then they let me go, paid me a ridiculous amount of money and told me to forget. But you can't forget the feeling of that place. It wasn't a building, it was a cage. And we weren't building it to keep people out. We were reinforcing it to keep something in. The stories of a vanished geologist, a haunted air traffic controller, and a terrified contractor all point to a single, unmapped location in the Nevada desert. They are compelling, but they are still just stories. To find something tangible, something official, we turn to the law. The Freedom of Information Act, or FOIA, is a tool designed to ensure government transparency. So we filed a request. We didn't ask about secret bases or unknown aircraft. We kept it simple, targeting the bureaucracy itself. Our request asked for all geological surveys, environmental impact statements, and federal land use permits issued between 2005 and 2015 for the specific 75 square mile quadrant encompassing Evan Hayes' last known position and the center of Leo's zone. For 6 months, there was silence. Our follow-up inquiries were met with automated responses and administrative delays. We were preparing for a legal challenge when, unannounced, a package arrived at our P.O. box. It was a simple cardboard mailer, heavy for its size, with a single label. FOIA Request 88B. Inside was a stack of paper nearly 3 inches thick, bound with a simple metal clip. It was the government's response. As we began to turn the pages, a chilling pattern emerged. Page after page was almost entirely covered in thick black ink. The redactions were absolute. This wasn't a case of protecting names or sensitive methods. This was an act of total information denial. Entire paragraphs, entire pages, entire sections were gone, leaving behind a sea of black. But they didn't get everything. Whether by mistake or by some unseen hand, a few words and phrases survived the purge, scattered like islands in the dark ocean of redaction. On page 17, unprecedented telluric currents. On page 48, containment of non-terrestrial material. On page 92, next to a blacked-out chart, risk of resonant cascade failure. On page 154, acoustic isolation protocols. And then, on page 210, a single heading for a section otherwise completely obliterated. Project Obsidian, Phase 2 Assessment. This was the first time we had a name. Obsidian, a black, volcanic glass formed from rapidly cooling lava. A naturally occurring void. The final page of the document was the most unsettling. It was a topographical map of the requested quadrant. But in the very center, where all our evidence suggested the facility should be, there was no black redaction box. There was nothing. It was a perfect, circular, white space, as if the land itself had been digitally and physically erased from the record. They hadn't just blacked out the information. They had created a hole in the map. The message was clear. What happens here is so secret. It doesn't just need to be hidden. It needs to not exist at all. Write in the comments where you are watching from and at what time, so I can get to know you better. To support the channel for free, don't forget to subscribe and like. Some places are not meant to be found, because they were never meant to exist. In the sprawling, labyrinthine corridors of the Pentagon, information is a currency, and secrecy is a fortress. When it comes to the unnamed facility, this fortress is impenetrable. For decades, a select few journalists, researchers, and even members of Congress have attempted to breach its walls, seeking answers about a ghost on the map, a budget item that doesn't exist. They are met not with denial, but with something far more chilling: a perfectly engineered, bureaucratic silence. It's a void, a carefully constructed null space where inquiries go to die. The standard tool for truth, the Freedom of Information Act, becomes a weapon of obfuscation. Requests filed for any information pertaining to construction, personnel, or funding within a specific set of coordinates are returned with a response that has become infamous among those in the know: the Glomar Response. We can neither confirm nor deny the existence of the information you have requested. It's a statement that says nothing and everything. It confirms that the question itself is a sensitive one. It tells you that you are treading on forbidden ground. Veteran investigative reporter Marcus Thorne, who dedicated the last decade of his career to this story before being professionally discredited, called it the perfect crime of information. He described submitting over 200 unique FOIA requests, rewording them, narrowing the scope, targeting different agencies from the Department of Defense to the Department of Energy. The result was always the same: a wall. Sometimes a different tactic is used. A trickle of documents is released, but they are a mockery of transparency. Pages are delivered where the only visible text is the letterhead and classification markings. Everything else is a solid block of black ink. It's a message: we have the files. You will never see them. This isn't the work of a single overzealous department. The coordination is staggering, suggesting a special access program, or SAP, of the highest order. A black budget project so deeply firewalled that even high-ranking military officials and politicians with top-secret clearance are denied access. A former aide to a senator on the Armed Services Committee speaking on condition of anonymity, recounted a closed-door briefing when his senator innocently inquired about unusual resource allocation to a supposedly barren sector of the Nevada desert. The four-star general leading the briefing simply stopped talking. The room went cold. The general stared, not with anger, but with a profound emptiness, and said, "Senator, that is not a productive line of questioning." The topic was never raised again. This is the Pentagon's strategy. Not a war of words, but a war of attrition. They exhaust you. They bankrupt you with legal fees. They discredit you. They build a wall so high and so silent that eventually you stop shouting at it, left to wonder what secrets it protects that are worth such an absolute, unyielding defense. Silence can speak volumes, and in the world of classified information, the black ink of a censor's pen can tell its own story. While the vast majority of inquiries into the facility are met with outright rejection, a handful of documents have slipped through the cracks over the years. These are not leaks. They are calculated releases, designed to look like transparency, while revealing nothing. But for those who know how to look, they are a treasure map, where the treasure is marked by what has been removed. We gave these fragmented documents to Delphi, a former NSA redaction analyst, who agreed to speak with us. For Delphi, a redacted document is a battlefield. "You don't look at the black boxes," she explained, her eyes scanning a declassified budget report from 1987. "You look at the space around them. You analyze the context, the sentence structure that remains, the specific exemption codes cited. That's where they make their mistakes." The document she was examining was titled Project Aqueous Mirror, Geotechnical Feasibility Study. 98% of its content was redacted, but the few words left visible were tantalizing. Phrases like unprecedented subterranean heat signatures, classified material logistics, and long-term biocontainment protocols were scattered like breadcrumbs. The redaction itself was a clue. The black boxes weren't uniform. Some were small, covering a single name or date. Others were massive, obscuring entire paragraphs and charts. "This isn't a simple search and replace job," Delphi noted. "This is surgical. They're hiding methodologies, scientific principles, something beyond just names and places." The most revealing part was the exemption codes cited in the margins, the legal justification for the redactions. Most were standard national security boilerplate, but one code appeared repeatedly: pursuant to 42 U.S.C. Paragraph 2162. This is not a generic code. It is the Atomic Energy Act of 1954. It is used specifically to protect restricted data, which covers all information concerning the design, manufacture, or utilization of atomic weapons, the production of special nuclear material, or the use of special nuclear material in the production of energy. Why would a geotechnical study in a barren wasteland require protection under the Atomic Energy Act? This single code recontextualizes everything. The subterranean heat signatures are no longer a geological curiosity. The biocontainment protocols take on a terrifying new meaning. The document, intended to be an informational dead end, becomes a signpost pointing towards a secret nuclear program of some kind, one that exists completely outside of any official treaty or declaration. The black ink no longer represents an absence of information. It represents the terrifying shape of the secret it is hiding. Beyond the paper trail of lies and the walls of silence, the Earth itself may be trying to tell us something. Deep within the planet's crust, in the same desolate region where the facility is rumored to exist, a strange and persistent pulse has been detected. This isn't the violent, chaotic signature of an earthquake, nor is it the rhythmic blasting of a mine or the shudder of hydraulic fracturing. It is something else entirely. We spoke with Dr. Eris Thorne, a seismologist at Caltech, who, in 2011, was analyzing deep Earth sensor data when he stumbled upon an anomaly that defied all known models. It was a ghost in the machine, he told us, a low-frequency, rhythmic vibration, repeating every 72 minutes, precisely, to the microsecond. This signal, which he nicknamed the pulse, originated from a depth of approximately 4 miles, far deeper than any known conventional construction. Natural geological phenomena do not behave with such perfect clockwork regularity. Mother Nature is chaotic, powerful, but she isn't a metronome, Dr. Thorne explained. He spent months trying to triangulate the source, but the data was strangely difficult to pin down. The public sensor arrays maintained by the U.S. Geological Survey seemed to have a data gap in that specific quadrant. It was only by accessing a network of older, forgotten Cold War-era sensors designed to detect underground nuclear tests that he could get a clear reading. The epicenter was a remote, government-owned stretch of land where nothing was supposed to be. When Dr. Thorne prepared to publish his initial findings, he received an unsolicited visit from 2 men who identified themselves as being from the Department of the Interior. They weren't threatening, but their message was clear. They informed him that his data was likely the result of a classified GPS calibration system, and that publishing it could compromise national security. He was strongly advised to redirect his research. The data from the Cold War sensors became inaccessible the next day. But what could cause such a signature? Speculation ranges from the mundane to the extraordinary. Could it be a massive, subterranean pumping station for an unknown purpose? The ventilation system for a city-sized underground complex? Or does it hint at something more advanced? Some theoretical physicists have suggested that the rhythmic pulse could be a byproduct of a massive particle accelerator, or even a contained energy source operating on principles we don't yet understand. The Earth is bearing witness to the operation of a colossal, hidden machine. The seismic signatures are the facility's heartbeat, a steady, rhythmic drum beat from a mechanical titan buried miles beneath our feet. Operating in total secrecy, its purpose and function a complete and terrifying mystery. In the modern age, there are no true secrets from the sky. A global network of orbital sentinels, both government and commercial, photograph every square inch of our planet in stunning detail. You can zoom in on your own house, count the cars in a parking lot halfway across the world. You can see everything, almost. Because over the very same coordinates where the seismic pulses originate, where all official inquiries cease to exist, the eye in the sky goes blind. This isn't just a patch of bad weather or persistent cloud cover. On Google Earth, Maxar, and other commercial satellite imagery platforms, the area is a permanent smudge, a low-resolution scar on an otherwise high-definition landscape. It's a digital void, roughly 50 square miles in size. For years, the official explanation was data processing errors. But independent satellite imagery analysts have proven that to be a deliberate falsehood. By comparing archival imagery from different providers across 4 decades, they discovered a clear pattern. High-resolution photos of the area exist from the 1970s, showing nothing but empty desert. Then, in the mid-1980s, the blind spot appears, simultaneously across all platforms. This coincides precisely with the time Project Aqueous Mirror was supposedly underway. This is evidence of what is known as shutter control, a legal though rarely acknowledged power of the U.S. government to restrict satellite imagery collection over sensitive sites through the National Defense Authorization Act. It is a government-mandated blindfold, but some evidence suggests it might be more than just a bureaucratic restriction. Amateur satellite trackers, a community of hobbyists who monitor the orbits of classified and unclassified objects, have reported bizarre signal behavior when satellites pass over these coordinates. Signals are inexplicably jammed. Telemetry data is momentarily spoofed, showing the satellite to be somewhere it isn't. Could there be an active system in place, a form of localized electronic warfare designed to blind any unauthorized orbital surveillance? The theories become even more exotic. Some propose the existence of advanced camouflage technology, perhaps atmospheric lensing or distortion, that actively bends light and radar waves around the site, rendering it invisible from above. This sounds like science fiction, but the patents for such meta-materials exist. If any agency were to develop and deploy such a system, this is precisely where they would do it. The blind spot is the final piece of the puzzle. It confirms that whatever is hidden there is not just a secret from the public, it's a secret from the world. A physical location on United States soil has been effectively erased from the map, excised from view by a coordinated effort that extends from the deepest archives of the Pentagon to the cold vacuum of space. It is a perpetual blind spot, a black hole on the face of the Earth, daring us to guess at the secrets it holds in its darkness. Write in the comments where you are watching from and at what time, so I can get to know you better. To support the channel for free, don't forget to subscribe and like. Some places are not meant to be found, because they were never meant to exist. Welcome back to the Obsidian Archive. In our ongoing investigation into the facility that does not appear on any record, we've examined missing persons, phantom satellite imagery, and redacted government budgets. But today we venture closer to the anomaly itself, into a perimeter defined not by fences or walls, but by the complete and utter collapse of modern technology. We're talking about the zone of electronic silence. For miles around the suspected location, a strange and powerful phenomenon occurs. Compasses spin wildly. GPS systems, both military and civilian grade, become hopelessly lost, placing a user hundreds of miles away or simply going dark. Cell phones, regardless of the carrier, display no signal bars. It's a digital black hole in the middle of nowhere. We spoke to a former search and rescue volunteer who wishes to remain anonymous about an incident that occurred in the region over a decade ago. We were searching for a lost hiker, standard procedure, but the closer we got to Black Ridge, the weirder things became. First, the radios started crackling. Not just interference, but patterns, almost like whispers buried in the static. Then our team's GPS units all failed simultaneously, every single one. It was unnerving. We were flying blind, relying on old paper maps and a compass that seemed to have a mind of its own. It felt like the land itself was actively resisting our technology, pushing us away. This isn't an isolated incident. Online forums for drone enthusiasts and private pilots are filled with cautionary tales about this specific geographic area. Drones, Even high-end models with sophisticated navigation systems lose their control link and simply fall out of the sky. Some have captured their final moments on video, a chaotic spiral of distorted images, flickering data overlays, and then nothing. What could generate an electromagnetic field so powerful and so localized that it can neutralize any device that enters its sphere of influence? Standard signal jamming technology is disruptive, but this is different. This is absolute. It's not just jamming. It's a complete nullification. We consulted with Dr. Eris Thorne, a physicist specializing in electromagnetic propagation, who analyzed the few available data points. He suggests the cause is something far beyond conventional jamming. It could be an unintended byproduct of a massive shielded power source, or more chillingly, a deliberately engineered defense mechanism, a non-lethal yet perfectly effective technological barrier, designed to make the area electronically invisible and physically impenetrable to modern surveillance. The zone of silence is the first layer of the onion, a ghostly perimeter that ensures whatever lies at its center remains undisturbed, unphotographed, and unrecorded. It's a 21st century fortress whose walls are woven from pure energy. If the zone of electronic silence is the facility's first line of defense, the second is far more insidious. It targets not our technology, but our own minds, our own primal instincts. For those who dare to venture past the point where their electronics fail, relying on grit and traditional navigation, a new and deeply unsettling phenomenon is reported: an unseen barrier. This isn't a physical wall. There are no fences, no warning signs, no patrols. There is only a feeling, a deep, gut-wrenching, instinctual dread that washes over you and screams one simple, undeniable command: turn back. We've collected over 24 independent accounts from hikers, hunters, and urban explorers who have attempted to approach the suspected location on foot. Their stories are remarkably consistent. They describe walking through the dense woods, feeling a growing sense of being watched. The sounds of the forest, birds, insects, the wind, slowly fade away into an unnatural, oppressive silence. And then they reach a point, an invisible line in the wilderness. To cross it feels physically impossible. Not because something is holding them back, but because their own body revolts. Sudden acute paranoia, an overwhelming sense of imminent danger, nausea and vertigo, a feeling that if they take one more step, something terrible and irreversible will happen. One account, posted on a deep web forum by a user named Pathfinder, is particularly chilling. I was 3 days in, all my gear was analog, I was maybe 5 miles from the coordinates. The silence was the first thing I noticed. It was like being in a soundproof room. Then came the pressure, like I was deep underwater. I saw the ridge I was aiming for clear as day, maybe another mile ahead. But I couldn't make my feet move forward. Every fiber of my being, every survival instinct I've ever had, was screaming at me. It felt like standing at the edge of a cliff that wasn't there. I felt a presence. Not a person, but something. Structural. Something vast and ancient and hostile. I turned around and practically ran for 10 miles without stopping. What could cause such a powerful psychosomatic reaction? Some theorists point to infrasound technology. Low-frequency sound, below the range of human hearing, has been proven to cause feelings of anxiety, dread, and paranoia. A strategically placed array of infrasound emitters could create a highly effective, non-lethal perimeter fence, a fear frequency that keeps intruders at bay. It's a weapon that attacks the mind directly, turning a person's own survival instincts against them. This unseen barrier ensures that even if you can bypass the electronic defenses, you cannot bypass your own biology. It raises a terrifying question. What is this facility protecting that it requires a defense system that can weaponize fear itself? The perimeter isn't just a line on a map. It's a boundary of sanity, a psychological wall guarding a secret. Its creators will do anything to keep. Beyond the electronic dead zone and the wall of fear lies another piece of the puzzle, one that you don't see or feel but hear, or rather, perceive. It's a phenomenon known among the few researchers who study this anomaly as the low hum. It is a persistent, low-frequency auditory signal that seems to emanate from the ground in the vicinity of the facility. It's often described not as a distinct sound, but as a vibration felt in the bones, a pressure in the chest. For decades, reports were purely anecdotal, dismissed as tinnitus or local imagination. But in the late 1990s, a seismic monitoring station, part of a university project to study minor fault lines, was temporarily installed about 20 miles from the suspected location. For 6 months, it operated normally, but its sensitive instruments picked up something else, a steady, rhythmic, non-geological vibration. A hum. The data was classified for years, filed away as an unexplained anomaly. But through a Freedom of Information Act request, the Obsidian Archive has obtained a sanitized portion of this data, which we have converted into an audible frequency. What you are hearing is the sound of the facility. It is constant, unwavering, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. It does not fluctuate with the seasons or the time of day. It is the sound of a machine, a very, very large machine. Audio analysts we've consulted have noted that the frequency, roughly between 30 and 50 hertz, is consistent with massive power generation or industrial-scale ventilation systems. Think of the power required to run a small city, or the air circulation needed for a complex buried deep within the earth. The sheer energy output required to generate a hum detectable miles away is staggering. It suggests an operation of immense scale, completely self-sufficient and isolated from any public power grid. This hum is the facility's heartbeat. It tells us that whatever is there is not dormant. It is active. It is consuming colossal amounts of energy. Where is that energy coming from? Some speculate a subterranean geothermal plant, tapping directly into the Earth's heat. Others propose a more advanced and perhaps more dangerous source, a next-generation nuclear reactor, one small enough to be concealed but powerful enough to run this hidden empire. The low hum is the most tangible piece of evidence we have. It is proof of activity, proof of power, and proof that deep beneath the silent earth, something is awake and working, hidden from the world, but broadcasting its powerful existence to anyone with the right instruments to listen. An electronic dead zone, a psychological barrier, a colossal, energy-consuming hum emanating from beneath the earth. When we assemble these disparate pieces of evidence, a chilling but logical picture begins to form. The most prominent and well-supported theory for what this facility is that it's a deep underground military base, or DUM. This is not science fiction. The United States and other world powers have been constructing vast subterranean complexes for decades, especially during the height of the Cold War. Places like the Cheyenne Mountain Complex were built to withstand a direct nuclear strike, designed as nerve centers for a continuity of government in the event of an apocalypse. But those facilities, while once top secret, are now largely known. Our facility remains completely off the books. This suggests it is something else entirely. A black site so secret, its very existence is denied at every level. Let's connect the dots. The zone of electronic silence would be a necessary security measure to prevent satellite reconnaissance and electronic eavesdropping, effectively making it a black hole on the digital map. The unseen psychological barrier, possibly generated by infrasound, serves as an advanced, non-lethal perimeter control system, deterring anyone who gets too close without leaving a trace. And the low hum? That is the sound of its life support, a private, potentially nuclear power source, and the massive ventilation systems required to make a subterranean city habitable for hundreds or even thousands of personnel. This theory posits that the facility is a hub for top-secret research and development. Projects that are too dangerous, too controversial, or too technologically advanced for conventional military bases. Think advanced energy weapons, exotic propulsion systems, or clandestine intelligence operations. It would be a place beyond oversight, beyond public knowledge, and beyond accountability. A place where the normal rules of science and warfare do not apply. The sheer scale implied by the evidence suggests a multi-level complex descending thousands of feet into the Earth's crust, a testament to decades of secret construction and astronomical, unrecorded expenditure. It is a hidden nation-state, buried for the purpose of developing the next generation of power. The dumb theory is compelling because it explains all the phenomena we've observed. It's a rational explanation for an irrational set of circumstances. But it also opens a Pandora's box of new questions. Who built it? Who funds it? And most importantly, what are they doing down there in the dark? Write in the comments where you are watching from and at what time, so I can get to know you better. To support the channel for free, don't forget to subscribe and like. Some doors, once opened, can never be closed again. Narrator. In our last chapter, we explored the possibility that Case 734, the facility that does not appear on any record, is an advanced energy research station, a place where the known laws of physics are being rewritten. But this theory, while compelling, fails to account for the sheer, suffocating level of secrecy involved. It doesn't explain the psychological profiles of the personnel recruited, the disappearances in the surrounding region, or the persistent whispers of something being held there. This leads us to a darker, more unsettling hypothesis. Theory 2. The facility is not a laboratory for creation, but a prison for containment. This is not a research center. It is a tomb, designed to hold something so dangerous, so volatile, that its existence must be denied at all costs. The concept of a black site is not new. Unacknowledged special access programs have operated in the shadows for decades, existing in legal gray areas, funded by budgets so deeply classified they are invisible to oversight. But Case 734 appears to be an order of magnitude beyond a typical black site. The geological and seismic data we've analyzed suggest periodic, high-energy releases contained deep underground. These are not the signatures of power generation. They are the signatures of violent struggle. Imagine a structure built not to keep people out, but to keep something in. Every wall, every corridor, every system is designed with one purpose: to prevent an escape. What could warrant such measures? Leaked internal memos, heavily redacted but cross-referenced for authenticity by our sources, use chilling terminology. They speak of K-class entities, ontological threats, and containment integrity protocols that include scenarios up to and including localized thermonuclear detonation as a final failsafe. This is not the language of scientific research. This is the language of existential defense. One anonymous source, a former geological surveyor who was aggressively debriefed and forced into early retirement after his equipment detected anomalous underground structures, described it to us as a cancer buried in the earth. He claimed the facility was built around a pre-existing anomaly, something they found, not something they made. This entity, he alleged, exhibits properties that defy conventional understanding. It is described in one fragmented report as non-physical yet possessing mass, sentient but without discernible biology. The theory posits that this entity was discovered decades ago, and the entire edifice of K734 was constructed around it, a multi-billion-dollar sarcophagus. The periodic energy bursts are not tests. They are tantrums. They are the desperate, furious attempts of a caged power to break free. The facility's personnel are not scientists in the traditional sense. They are wardens. Their job is to monitor, to placate, and, if necessary, to enact the final terrifying protocols to ensure that whatever is inside stays inside. This theory reframes every piece of evidence. The electromagnetic jamming isn't to hide research, it's to block communication from the entity. The sterile, empty landscape isn't for security, it's a kill zone. The absolute denial of its existence is not a matter of national security, but of species survival. Narrator: if the containment of a terrestrial, ontological threat seems beyond belief, our third theory pushes the boundaries of possibility even further into the void. This hypothesis suggests that the danger contained within Case 734 is not of this world. We are exploring the chilling possibility that the facility that does not appear on any record is a non-terrestrial quarantine zone. It is a biological and technological airlock between our world and whatever lies beyond. For over 70 years, the skies have been filled with unidentified aerial phenomena. While public discourse often devolves into ridicule, official, declassified reports from military and intelligence agencies worldwide now confirm the existence of craft that defy our understanding of aerodynamics and physics. But the most critical question is never truly addressed in the public sphere. What happens when one of them fails? What happens when we recover not just inert metal, but functioning technology, or worse, biological occupants, living or dead? The answer, according to this theory, is Case 734. This facility would be the most secretive place on Earth because the implications of its purpose would rewrite human history, religion, and science in a single stroke. Imagine a crash retrieval operation. The material is brought not to a known military base like Wright-Patterson, but to a place that officially doesn't exist. Here, in subterranean biocontainment labs rated far beyond any known public standard, BSL-5 or even higher, the material is studied. The primary objective is not understanding, but quarantine. What kind of alien microorganisms could be dormant on a piece of wreckage? What would a non-terrestrial virus do to our biosphere? The potential for a planet-ending pandemic would be absolute. Every protocol would be built around this terrifying possibility. One document fragment, designated Codex 734 Omega, speaks of metamaterials exhibiting acausal properties and biological samples with a non-standard codon structure. This implies recovered technology, that operates outside the linear flow of time and alien life, based on a completely different form of genetics. The facility would be a labyrinth of sterile chambers, airlocks, and incinerators. Scientists would work in fully enclosed suits, their every move monitored, their psychological states constantly evaluated for any sign of compromise or contamination. But quarantine is only one half of the equation. The other is exploitation. Any recovered technology would represent a leap of millennia for whoever could reverse engineer it. This could explain the strange energy signatures. They could be the result of attempts to power up or interface with alien devices. A single success could create weapons or energy sources of unimaginable power, destabilizing the global balance forever. This theory also provides a grim context for the local disappearances. Were they accidental exposures? Or were they abductions? Not by aliens, but by the facility's own security, silencing witnesses, or perhaps even using human subjects to test the effects of the recovered non-terrestrial elements. The secrecy surrounding Case 734 would be paramount, not just to prevent public panic, but to maintain a singular, overwhelming strategic advantage. The truth of extraterrestrial contact would be the ultimate secret, and this hidden facility would be its lockbox. Narrator, we've explored the what of Case 734, the theories of its purpose, from energy to containment to quarantine. But perhaps the most haunting part of this story is the who, the human cost. What is the psychological toll on the individuals tasked with guarding the world's most profound and terrifying secret? The personnel of the facility that does not appear on any record do not exist on any public payroll. They are ghosts, recruited from the highest echelons of military intelligence, theoretical physics, and specialized security forces, then made to disappear. Their lives are a paradox. They are at the absolute center of human history, yet they are completely removed from it. We have pieced together a profile of these individuals from leaked psychiatric evaluation criteria and the fragmented testimony of alleged former employees. They live in a state of managed paranoia. Every conversation is monitored, every relationship scrutinized. They are told that the fate of the world rests on their silence, a burden of unimaginable weight. One leaked document describes a condition called ontological dissonance syndrome, a psychological breakdown that occurs when an individual's core understanding of reality is permanently shattered by what they've witnessed inside the facility. Symptoms include chronic anxiety, derealization, paranoia, and a complete inability to reintegrate into normal society. They know what is real, and they know that the world they came from is a blissful illusion. How do you return to a normal life after you've stood guard over a caged god or held a piece of technology that defies causality? The answer is, you don't. The facility becomes your entire world, and your own mind becomes a prison. The constant threat of contamination, whether physical or informational, is relentless. There are whispers of cognitive decontamination protocols, procedures designed to erase or alter memories to maintain security. Former personnel, if they are ever allowed to leave, may not even remember their time there, left only with a void in their lives and a deep, unexplainable trauma. One of the most chilling accounts comes from a cryptographer who claims to have worked on incoming signals. He describes not a language, but a form of conceptual transmission that bypasses language centers in the brain and imparts raw information. He said that prolonged exposure felt like having your soul overwritten. He now lives in self-imposed isolation, communicating only through encrypted channels, terrified that the signal is still dormant in his mind. The human element is the weakest link in any security chain. These individuals, burdened with cosmic secrets, are a constant risk. The organization behind Case 734 would therefore have to perfect the art of psychological control. They would use isolation, disinformation, and chemical therapies to ensure compliance and silence. The true horror of the facility may not be what it contains, but what it does to its keepers. It grinds them down, erases their identities, and transforms them into silent, traumatized custodians of a truth they can never share, trapped between a world they can no longer belong to and a reality they can barely survive. Narrator: we stand at the edge of a chasm of ignorance, peering into the darkness of Case 734. We have sifted through redacted documents, analyzed seismic data, and listened to the fragmented whispers of those who claim to have been there. We have constructed theories, an energy project rewriting physics, a prison for an ancient entity, a quarantine zone for visitors from the stars. Yet the truth remains as elusive as the facility itself. Each theory, in its own way, fits the available evidence. And this, perhaps, is the most disturbing possibility of all, that the confusion is intentional. What if the few leaks that have emerged are not accidents, but part of a sophisticated disinformation campaign? What if the whispers of alien technology are a smokescreen to hide a terrestrial breakthrough? What if the stories of a contained monster are a fable designed to scare away the curious from a far more pragmatic but equally secret military project? The architects of Case 734 are masters of secrecy. They understand that the best way to hide a single monumental truth is to surround it with a dozen compelling lies. By leaking conflicting narratives, they create a hall of mirrors where investigators and researchers chase shadows, arguing over which theory is correct, never realizing that they are all part of the deception. The unresolved truth of Case 734 is that we cannot be certain of anything. The facility is a paradox. It is a void that has a gravitational pull. Its non-existence is a more powerful statement than any official confirmation could ever be. It represents a tier of secrecy so profound that it operates on a different level of reality from our own. It is a known unknown, a deliberate black hole in our collective knowledge. So, where does that leave us? It leaves us with a responsibility. The existence of a place like Case 734, whatever its true purpose, proves that there is a world behind the world we see. It is a world governed by secrets, not laws. A world where the stakes are not political or economic, but potentially existential. The silence surrounding this facility is a challenge. It asks us to question the official narrative, to look deeper, to demand transparency. Because the one thing we can be certain of is this: secrets of this magnitude are never kept for the public's benefit. They are kept for the benefit of those who control them. The final chilling thought is not what lies within the walls of this non-existent facility, but why its existence must be so utterly and completely denied. What truth is so world-shattering that the only defense is to pretend it isn't there? Case 734 remains an enigma, a testament to the fact that on the map of our knowledge there are still vast territories marked, "Here be dragons." We can only continue to watch the shadows, listen to the static, and wait for the next piece of the puzzle to emerge from the darkness.